What's hiding underneath things can be scary. Underwater, under your bed, especially what's under your carpet. Except when you get new carpet from Carpet One Floor and Home. After tearing up your old carpet, they'll vacuum and apply Health Annex antimicrobial to your subfloor, disinfecting and killing mold, mildew, and any remaining general awfulness. Carpet One Floor and Home goes the extra mile to protect you, your family, and your home. Carpet One Floor and Home in Columbia, making your home beautiful, guaranteed.
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Tuesday, August the 15th. And I've got a friend of mine here who had been around for quite a while, Andrew Grabau. Good to have you here,
Good
Andy.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Andy is from, or Andrew, he wants to be called Andrew. Yeah, that's the formal thing. From Heart of Missouri United Way. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
What have we got going? It's been a little bit since we've talked. So what have you got going with United Way?
Well, we, of course, are busy year-round, and because United Way in our community oversees and supports 29 local organizations with 45 strategic grants that provides support on all of the areas of the greater social determinants of health. So in education, financial stability, health basic needs. So we've been really busy working with our partners and making sure that we can help to provide services to our most vulnerable so they have the opportunity.
What would you say is one of the most important things that United Way provides for the community?
So I'm really glad that you asked that question, Paul, because about 10 years ago, United Way made a very large shift to how we look at making grants. And the shift is a framework called community impact. And this framework is a process that's rooted in really looking at local data, bringing together partners, making sure that we have a continuous call to action. And that's important than perhaps the United Way that maybe you're familiar with from 10, 15, 20 years ago, because we are very strategic and intentional in every single grant that we make, and we measure that to make sure that we have a successful outcome. And if you don't mind, I'd like to give an example of what that looks like. So throughout the pandemic, United Way has worked with our partners with the City of Columbia and with Boone County and Columbia Public Schools, and we look at third grade reading scores, and we measure the test scores on third grade reading. How many of our kids are reading at a proficient or advanced level? And we know that with kids outside of the classroom, those numbers really fell significantly. So last year in 2021, we had 37% of our kids in the third grade in Columbia Public Schools who read at a proficient or an advanced level. 37%.
37%.
Yes.
So what about the rest?
And that's like getting an A or a B in reading, right? If you want to call it that way. I mean, that's not a one-to-one comparison, but that's basically what it's like. And so that means the rest of our students are struggling. And that's a drop. We were at roughly in the high 40s, around 45, 50% before the pandemic.
All of this, you feel, came about because kids were not in the classroom.
I think it's a number of things. We have kids who weren't in the classroom. We had kids that were dealing with the stress. And I mean, we can all remember the stress at the height of the pandemic.
Yes.
A lot happened during that time.
And I think it affected young people in a different way than it affected people my age.
I think that's what the studies are starting to show. And so United Way looks at that and we say, okay, this is more than just an issue about reading. This is more than just an issue about making sure kids have books. How do we strategically create grants that will help our kids when they're outside of the classroom? And when United Way does that through grants with organizations that I believe you probably have on your show all the time, like Grade A Plus or Big Brothers Big Sisters or even Boys and Girls Club, we give those grants in anticipation of them providing strategic services, but then we measure those. So, for example, we know, I mentioned that 37% of our kids in the third grade who are reading at a proficient or an advanced level. We know through measuring the programs at United Way, that same cohort that uses United Way services, 91% of those children exceed the benchmarks and improve their scores, their academic scores. So we know that our programs in this regard are working. Yeah. And that's what we want. When people give money to United Way, We want them to have an a sense of understanding that the dollar is going to be monitored and invested, and it's going to help in turning the curve.
Let me ask you this. What would happen, and God willing, this will never happen, but what would happen to our community if United Way was not here? If all of this money that United Way is providing through people donating, if it wasn't available here, what would happen?
Well, we know through looking at all of our programs that 1 in 5 people in our community, that's Boone, Cooper, and Howard counties, utilize United Way funded services.
1 in 5
1 in
people.
5. And so it's not only our most vulnerable. When you think of United Way, you think of services we provide to our unsheltered or to our homeless or to some of our kids who are really struggling. But we also provide support to people who are just on the cusp, who maybe took that step back because they had an emergency, needed some additional assistance with a utility bill, for example, so that they could then step forward and continue living their lives. Without United Way in our community, we know that those 1 in 5 would have to go elsewhere, or they would do without, or they would fall further behind.
Chances are they would have to do without, because going elsewhere would be totally overwhelmed.
Yes.
So I wanted to bring that point up so that you realize how important this organization is to our community. Because when you're supporting United Way, you're actually supporting 29 different
Yes.
community organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to think about for those of us who do have the resources to help others, that we make time in our day and in our heart and in our pocketbook to help other folks who are less fortunate than us. And depending, you can do it many, many different ways, and United Way is one way to help out.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. The call to action is really important for our community to hear, because 97% of our revenue comes from local community donations. Mm-hmm. And so the ability for United Way to make those 45 grants to support 29 nonprofit organizations is because of the generosity of the community. And we have an ambitious goal. Starting on August 30th of this year, we're asking the community to help us raise over $3 million.
Is that the highest it's ever been?
It's the highest that we've had for some time. With the pandemic, we had some extra donations that we received. But for our community, this is a really big call to action, but I know we can meet it.
Okay, $3 million
Correct.
Or over $3 million?
Over 3, that's correct.
Okay. Andrew, we're out of time for today, but if people want more information, it's www.uwheartmissouri.org.
Correct.
Right? Or you can just Google it.
That's right.
Heart of Missouri United Way. Thank you so much. Is there a phone number, or you want them to just go to the...
Please go to our website.
Go to the website. Best thing. Okay. We're out of time for today. If there's something you'd like to hear or see, drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. Have yourself a nice day. Bye-bye.